Now understand this. Thinking on the seed is not the same as thinking about the seed. This distinction is fundamental, and understanding it determines whether the seed develops or remains undeveloped. This is the 7-minute daily focus, day 117 of 365, to focus on the world within from the world without. Today's focus, the law of seed, thinking on the seed. Pause for a moment. 4 days in, you have understood the seed. You have understood its nature. You have understood that thought and seed are the same. You have understood that thinking is the ground. Now understand this. Thinking on the seed is not the same as thinking about the seed. This distinction is fundamental, and understanding it determines whether the seed develops or remains undeveloped. Pause. Thinking about the seed is analysis. It is the mind examining the seed from the outside, asking, is it real? Is it complete? Will it work? When will it express? This kind of thinking moves around the seed. It observes the seed. It evaluates the seed, but it does not sustain thinking upon the seed. And what the mind does not sustain upon does not develop. Analysis is not development. Questioning is not sustaining. Examining is not remaining. Thought is within. Effect is without. Thinking stands between. Pause for a moment. Thinking on the seed is different. Thinking on the seed means the mind is directed toward the seed and remains there, not examining it from a distance, not questioning what it holds, not asking when it will express, but remaining with it, sustained, aligned, focused on the reality of what the seed already carries, not moving away to examine appearances, not pulling back to assess conditions, remaining on the seed, on what is within. Pause for a moment. Consider the distinction through the image of the ground. A farmer who walks past the seed every day and examines the soil above it, but never commits to allowing it to grow, is not developing the seed. He is watching it, he is measuring it, he is not allowing the ground to do what ground does. But a farmer who places the seed and then tends the ground with steady attention, returning daily not to examine but to nourish, that farmer is developing the seed. Thinking on the seed is the tending, not the examining. Pause. What does it look like in practice to think on the seed? It is directing thinking toward what the seed already holds, not asking what it will become, recognizing what it already is. It is holding within your awareness the completeness of what the seed carries, the full expression that is already there, and remaining with that completeness steadily, not restlessly moving to what is physically seen, not comparing the inner reality to the outer condition, but remaining with the inner reality as the governing truth. Pause for a moment. And here is the precision. Thinking on the seed is not a passive state. It is not a trance. It is not an empty mind. Thinking on the seed is active, directed, intentional. The mind is fully engaged, but it is engaged with what is within, with the reality of the seed, with the completeness of what is already there. And that engagement, sustained over time, is what develops the seed toward expression. This is why the daily practice matters, because it trains the mind to remain on the seed, rather than drifting to what is without. Pause for a moment. Thinking on the seed has one outcome, physical expression, not maybe, not possibly, every time, because the law does not change. The seed that is sustained upon through steady thinking develops, and what develops unfolds, and what unfolds must physically express. The word must is not incidental. It is the law stating its precision. There is no mechanism by which a seed that is fully developed through sustained thinking fails to physically express. The law does not have exceptions. This is why thinking on the seed matters more than any other activity. It is the one thing that bridges the metaphysical completeness of the seed to its physical expression. Nothing else bridges that gap, only sustained thinking. Pause for a moment. Consider what happens over days and weeks of thinking on the seed. The mind becomes accustomed to remaining on what is within. It becomes less responsive to what is without. Not because the physical world has become less present, but because the habit of thinking has changed. The mind that previously leapt immediately to what was physically seen begins instead to return to the seed first, to check within before responding without. This is the transformation that happens through practice, not overnight. Day by day, through the act of thinking on the seed consistently until it becomes the natural movement of a trained mind. Not doubtfulness, not struggle, not force. You are not pushing the seed, not pressure. You are not trying to make it happen, but steadfastness, focused, remain aligned with what is within. Do not be moved by what is physically seen, because what is physically seen is always secondary to what is unfolding. Pause. Thinking on the seed is the work of these 14 days, not just understanding the law intellectually, but practicing the act of sustained thinking upon the seed every day in the morning before the physical world speaks, directing thinking toward what is within, toward the seed that is already complete, toward the reality that already exists before any physical sign appears, and remaining there long enough for the ground to receive what thinking brings, long enough for development to continue, long enough for the seed to keep unfolding. Pause. You will notice that the mind wants to move. It wants to check conditions. It wants to evaluate appearances. It wants to know when and how and whether. And this is not failure. This is the nature of a mind that has been trained to respond to what is without, but you are training it now to respond to what is within. And that training happens here, in this daily moment, when you direct thinking toward the seed and remain. Even when the mind wants to move, even when conditions speak, you remain on the seed. Pause for a moment. Thinking on the seed is the single most important practice in this system, because without it, the seed remains complete but undeveloped, and without development, there is no expression. Thinking on the seed is what bridges the gap between metaphysical completeness and physical expression, between what is within and what is without. Thinking is the bridge, and you are learning to build it every day, steady, focused, remaining. Now, the affirmation for day 117. Pause for a moment. I do not think about the seed from a distance. I think on the seed. I direct thinking toward what the seed already holds. I remain with the completeness of what is within. I do not examine, I sustain. I do not question, I remain. My thinking is steady upon the seed, every day, without interruption, without movement toward what is physically seen. I sustain thinking upon what is within, and because I sustain, the seed develops, and because it develops, it unfolds. And what unfolds must physically express, remember, by design, by focus.